Good morning, folks, fellow Grenadians, and friends of Grenadians. My name is Dennis Charles. Today, I endeavor to do a short presentation on the revolution, the 1979 NJM revolution. There is a lot of information I would cover. I am having problems with Facebook, and I guess as much it's the internet. I've been cut off 3 times already. So I'll make a video on my own and then post it instead of going live. I keep getting interrupted all the time and I just cannot continue. So I do apologize. For those of you who looked at me, the problem is not mine. I believe it's deliberate. I'm singled out. That's what I think. So I'll attempt to continue by doing a video, not live, and then playing it back on Facebook and my page, etc., other Grenadian outlets, so everybody could see. Okay? So yes, it is March 13th, the anniversary of Grenada's revolution, PRG, NJM revolution. I want to stress before I start the fact that there is no church ceremony. There is no parade in Queen's Park. There is no announcement on the radio station celebrating the dawn of today, this day. That speaks volume. It is a day many would like to forget. It is not a day we want to remember because it ushered in a reign of terror, 4 years of brutality, which is called heavy manners by the PRG. The very same PRG who condemned Gary for excesses, accusing him of being a despot, a dictator, and the like. They came in and they did worse. So let me start by saying that first, my mission is to shed light in dark places in our history. Today, my goal is to educate, not to fabricate, peddling talking points in order to confuse, to mislead, to bamboozle the Grenadian people. We had enough. My goal is to liberate, to emancipate our people from the talons of Marxism, Leninism, communism pursued by the PRG government. Folks, it is important to know the truth, but the truth hurts. It cuts real deep. So the continued effort to lie and present a false narrative would never go away. These folks, hardcore communists, would never admit to what they did. They would never confess. They would not come clean. They are embarrassed. They would hide and say, I didn't do it. I have no clue that was happening. Somebody else did it. The Americans did that. They won't blame themselves. They have an oath of secrecy that they swear never to come forward and admit the brutality, the suffering of the Grenadian people for 4.5 years. They still continue to say, long live the revolution. We don't even know what the revolution was or who it was. And that is the question. So peddling lies, misinformation, propaganda become the norm. And some of us call ourselves Christian. We are holy certain days of the week or weekend, and we preach the Lord Jesus. We are saved. And we go back lying and will never admit the truth and come clean. The Bible tells you to speak the truth, cost it what it will. And I know who I'm talking to. I'm talking to you. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot be righteous and crooked and corrupt at the same time. Come out and admit the truth. And let the chips fall where they may. So having set the tone, I shall make it clear from the outset that I have no interest in presenting opinions. No, my goal here today is to tell the truth. Many will be offended. However, it is about time that I take off the glove and dismantle the myth, the hypocrisy, the fake news about this glorious revolution. May I ask again, what is a revolution? How is it different from a coup d'etat? And shouldn't a people's revolution be controlled by the people? It is a people's revolution. The question is, what say did they have, the very same people, in managing their own affairs? What voice did they have in the people's revolution? A revolution that was supposed to belong to the people. Because their very voices were shut down or banned. I make mention here of the local Grenadian press, the Free West Indian, that was closed immediately by the PRG government. And that happened soon after the revolution. The radio station that we relied upon for the dissemination of information, that too, it was taken over and it became a propaganda tool. Propaganda by the PRG. It was changed to Radio Free Grenada, even though Grenada was not free anymore. So the stage was set for more restrictions. All political parties or opposition political activities were banned in Free Grenada during the glorious revolution. Something is wrong here, right? Okay. No one had any right to express his or her opinion on any topic anymore. All Grenadian rights were curtailed or suspended because the Constitution was done away with. Darkness fell upon the land, brothers and sisters. The abuse and human rights violations began. The PRG made it clear that there were to be no more elections. Grenada now was a one-party state with a hardcore group of ambitious communists, atheists, hell-bent on power, which they said came from the barrel of a gun. We had more AK-47 in Grenada than you would find grains of sand on Granans Beach. We became a satellite state of Cuba, with Fidel Castro calling the shots via his ambassador, Mr. Rizzo, all the way from Havana. We sold our revolution for a shipment of arms. the gun culture was born. And so our leaders found it necessary to indoctrinate the youths, making them memorize slogans, arming them into militias, taking them to maneuvers and parades when they should be in school or at home doing chemistry, math, or biology, even going over the homework. They were on the beach waiting to kill mercenaries at nights. Welcome to Heavy Manners, where teachers were now afraid of their former pupils or students who walked around with guns, sometimes in the classroom, in uniforms, intimidating the very teachers who were cultivating them, teaching them, educating them. Intimidation went wild. So the stage was set for a breakdown in our society, and it did come. Neighbors were spying. They were spying on other neighbors. Friends were turning in friends, calling them counter-revolutionary, making up stories. Guys got jailed because some other PRA wanted to talk to his girlfriend or wife. No proof, no charges, no reason given, no trial. Revolutionary justice showed no mercy. With a suspended constitution, the leaders had free will to jail all of the enemies, their frenemies, and their friends alike. And then they turned on the family. Maurice Bishop and Bernard Cord even turned around and began jailing the original members of the Joel movement. Case in point, Teddy Victor and the Mitchell brothers from Vincent St. David's. They cleared away the brush, the bushes, and any overhanging branches in the way of their power grab. You go to jail. Thousands of Grenadians were rounded up at gunpoint and locked up in the most horrific conditions imaginable. Fed bad food with dead flies, cockroach, weevil, and worms. And of course, a handful of rat poop or rat droppings inside of it. In most cases, 3 men to a cell, locked up 23 hours a day. No permission to use the toilet or even to bathe. Sometimes a bucket was placed in the cell, and that bucket became a latrine. And you had to pull your pants down in front of the other 2 guys living in the cell with you. When you're finished, you beg the PRA soldiers to give you some toilet paper, if he so chooses. Heavy manners continue. Detainees were starved. Detainees were tortured and abused in every way imaginable. Many were shot, and some of them were raped. There was even a baby who was born in jail during the glorious revolution under Bernard Cord and Maurice Bishop. The Rastafari community who fought the revolt on the promise of the liberation of marijuana, decriminalization of the weed. They fought, they picked up arms and overthrew Gary. The bulk of the fighters from the country were Rastafari. They were rounded up for smoking weed after the revolution succeeded, and we had enough Cubans here even though Bishop himself knew they were smoking weed because he used to smoke weed with them too. In particular, the guys in Tivoli. And all of that happened before the revolution. He knew they were smoking weed. No problem. But after he was secured, it was wrong to smoke marijuana. And there would be no legalization of marijuana. They were called marijuana mongols. So yes, they were used. They became marijuana plantocrats. And when the prison became overcrowded at Richmond Hill, they normally say a train will move. And a train will move means that they would release convicted criminals so that they could make way, take your cell to put detainees. No trial, no charges, no evidence, no proof. While the violations were going on, both Bishop and Cord were boasting about a glorious revolution in Grenada. Everything is good. They later converted an old cattle pen in Hopevale as a concentration camp to incarcerate the Rastafari community. In particular, I'm talking about Ras Ifree, who was starved because he didn't want to eat pork or go out and work for free in the hot sun. Days without food, he resorted to eat a raw breadfruit. It wasn't cooked. It started to turn half ripe. When you're hungry, you will do anything to survive. Ifree from Sauterres area fought for the revolution on the morning of March 13th. Maurice Bishop was nowhere in sight fighting for the revolution. Bernard Code didn't have a gun in his hand fighting for the revolution. Phyllis Code was not around fighting for the revolution. Jacqueline Creff was nowhere to be found fighting for the revolution. They hijacked the NJM revolution. I'm talking about guys like James Yerry, who they later put in jail, Teddy Victor, who they later put in jail, Kennedy Budlal, whom they later put in jail, Evan Matthew Bola, they put in jail, Ronnie Skolniak, they put in jail, Rodney Gravels Nelson, they put in jail, Roland J. Budlal, they put in jail, Ralph Thompson, they put in jail, and the list goes on and on and on. You get the point. Hopevale, the scene there was a crime against humanity. The Rastas who did not want to go and work to cultivate crops to feed the Cubans, they were handcuffed behind the back. Sometimes they had to sleep on the ground. They couldn't get up to pee. Many had to pee themselves, and other things I will not mention. And if they didn't work, they were beaten so badly. There was one guy from Sobeys called Rasta Jerry. He took the beating and he refused to work for Babylon, that they call the authorities Babylon. He was starved. A certain PRA, couple PRAs, put him in a drain with water for about 5 days, no food. Mosquito biting him, handcuffed, he can't do anything. Shackled. At one point, the final hour came. He decided to go out in the field and walk. He got up, couple footsteps, he fell on his face over there, he died. In Hopevale, during the glorious revolution, not under Gary and Gary Mongo's gang and all of that crap. During the glorious revolution, the beatings, the torture, and who visited Hopevale on a regular basis? Maurice Bishop, Bernard Cord, Victor Husband, and this other one, Kenrick Radix. In fact, Bernard Cord told them they would stay there and rot and they would never see freedom again. Maurice Bishop had no problem with the same Rastas who fought and put him in power while he was in hiding. He had nothing to do with the revolution. When they finished, they gave him power. He turned around and he jailed all of them, including Kennedy Boudlal, which was the mastermind in the country up here for the success of the revolution, along with Gravels, Ronnie Skolnayak, Ivan Mucho Bola, and from Sotels, James Harry and others. And yes, Rasta I Free. You get the point. So they had to implement lies, misinformation, pretending to be ordinary people, but it was the plantocracy coming back into power, using the children from the plantation to pick up gun and overthrow Gary, who liberated their grandparents and put back the very same people who oppress the foreparents in power. Maurice Bishop and Bernard Court had no respect for an ordinary man from the country. It doesn't matter how hard you worked to put him in power. You go to Fort Rupert, you go to Richmond Hill, or you go to Hope Vale if you smoke weed. Heavy manners continued. PRA soldiers with rank took part in the most outrageous physical abuse and torture. I could make reference to the brother of former Prime Minister Tillman Thomas. At one point, they thought he was dead. They would beat him every day on the same spot, his shin bone, his kneecap, and his waist, pounding him with a gun butt. And the PRA in charge of that beating, his name is Chicken. All the big PRA with ranks, schoolboy, and all of that, those kind of names like that. The abuse, the things that they did, crimes against humanity. So the fact that Gary was duly elected, then overthrown, so that Grenada can be governed by the rule of law. We had the PRA coming in, the PRG. The Grenadian people welcomed them with open arms. A breath of fresh air, time for a change. Immediately, they suspended the constitution. The PRG did not exist on March 10th, March 11th, March 12th, or on the morning of March 13th. It was the NJM that overthrew Gary. There was nothing called the PRG. Outsmarted and outflanked, Maurice Bishop and Bernard Court hijacked the NJM revolution, rename it the PRG, and through Kennedy Boudlal, Kenneth Buck Boudlal, and all the others, James Harry, even Dr. Stanley Cyrus, who supported the overthrow of Gary from the United States of America. When things got tough, he decided to come and have a chat, little conversation, a little one-on-one with Bernard Court and Maurice Bishop. They turned around and they picked him up and they jailed him too. James Harry was instrumental in getting the grease, the guns in barrels of grease, to overthrow former Prime Minister Eric Gary. He too was rounded up on the orders of Maurice Bishop and put in jail. One man signed over 3,000 detention papers. Most of the detainees' detention papers that ordered the detention was signed by Maurice Bishop. Power got to his head. Castro was his best friend. He had Cuban soldiers to back him up. God doesn't like ugly. So, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, whether you fall for the handsome face of Maurice Bishop or the eloquent speeches he made, remember this: don't judge a book by the cover. You judge a man by the content of his character. Trust me. That is what Martin Luther King said we should do. I will begin my closing here by saying that the time has come for us to put aside the facade, the propaganda, the leftist slogans, forward ever, backward never. You are going backward. They suspend the Constitution. There is no election. You cannot vote. You cannot organize and form a political party. You go to jail. You cannot even speak in your house. Somebody in the back listening to you. They report you to the PRA. Ronnie Bob and all the others come and pick you up and put you in jail. No trial, no charge, no evidence, no nothing. Forward ever. How the hell that could be forward? Is that forward? Is that progress? You fall for slogans. And they play it on the radio every day, every night, every day, every night. Propaganda. They shut down the media. There is no alternative view. And they indoctrinated the gullible, the most susceptible among us, the youth. So instead of going to school, you're not even old enough to get married or to get involved. Physically, it's statutory rape. But you could carry a gun with arms in it, a big AK-47. You can kill. And some of you became soldiers at 16 years old. You are not an adult. But you have a weapon that you can mow somebody down to protect Bishop or to protect Code. The revolution couldn't stand. Ladies and gentlemen, a house built on sand, sinking sand, it doesn't have any foundation, it's gonna crumble. Like a hill of beans in October 1983, it came crushing down. God doesn't like ugly. The revolution was illegal. It was not legitimized by election. It was illegal. It came into power by force, and it was maintained by force. Brutal, oppressive force by some young men, some of them 22 years old, being given ranks, made majors and lieutenant or whatever it is. Eventually, they are the very same ones who finished Maurice Bishop, Jacqueline Kreff, Mr. Bain, Unison Whiteman, and a whole lot more on that fateful day up at Fort Rupert. A massacre. But charity begins at home. They were the same murderers that they let loose on the people of Tivoli, the people of Montreach, and other areas to terrorize the neighborhood, raiding folks at night, grabbing them and bringing them to jail. No charges, no evidence, no nothing. Indefinite detention. Maurice Bishop signed the detention paper. You could call it what you will. Evil is evil. You cannot believe in God and preach Jesus Christ and then you support wickedness at the same time. Something is wrong with your head. Go get cleansed or let somebody pray for you. You can't do that. You're a hypocrite if you do, and you're only fooling you because we know who you are. So they go around. Young PRA soldiers barely could read and write, driving fast vehicles going nowhere. They had power, they get a uniform, they get rank, and they could put anybody under heavy manners. Fear and intimidation became the tools used to keep the population in check. They stay in power. The revolution was Bernard Cord and Maurice Bishop. The revolution was not about Grenada, building Grenada, and giving us a better future. The revolution was a dictatorship. It was a power grab. In fact, it was a coup d'etat, because the only thing they were trying to protect is their own ego and ambition. They used Richmond Hill to the max. When Richmond Hill was filled with no more space, they get the Cubans to knock down a piece of it and build a maximum security with more detainees, sometimes 3 to a cell, small as a goat pen. no windows, no air conditioning, no toilet to use. You use a bucket for a latrine. Sometimes days you cannot go out and bathe. You're stinking inside of there. And guess what? On the top of it, they pour black tar or pitch. You roast without fresh air. They didn't have to beat you. Yes, you get bad food. You eat cockroach. You eat bread that rat chew half off. They feed you pork, even if you are a Rasta or Seventh-day Adventist. It doesn't matter, the brutality. But what they do, as I said, God doesn't like ugly. The revolution could have never lasted. So the fake revolutionaries took power from the real revolutionaries, calling the real revolutionaries counter-revolutionaries. They enjoy the fruits of the labor of Kennedy Boudlal, James Thierry, Ralph Thompson, Strawn Phillip, whom they killed in his house, and many other revolutionaries. I have interviewed so many people. I don't want this to be very long. You'd have to read my book. And I've collected all the information I think I need. So I don't need to go any further. I'll just publish. My book is entitled Heavy Manners, Under Heavy Manners, The Unmaking of a Revolution. I am satisfied with my work. I've done enough. I've gone to the sources, get information from the horse's mouth, look at evidence of torture, whose head was drilled, the scalp drilled by a certain PRA, whose fingers were punched to the ground from the gun butt by a certain PRA, high-ranking PRA. The abuses that they took, I have all of that documented with the names of who did them. And most of those PRAs now are outside pretending to be holy. Some join religion and preaching God. Now they save under Jesus Christ. But the sins, the things they did, would always live on. In ending, the trickery used by Bernard Cord and Maurice Bishop to woo Unison Whiteman from Teddy Victor, it lasted for a while. It lasted for a while. I want to briefly mention just a few names because over 3,000 innocent Grenadians suffered. Homes were broken. Fathers who provided bread were separated from their wives and children. The young children dropped out of school, got pregnant and all of that. Destroyed by the revolution. Thousands of families. Grenada is a small place. It was not needed. It wasn't necessary. If you have a heart, you cannot support the Grenada Revolution. That was a coup d'etat. As I said, the intention of Kennedy Boudlal, Evan Matthew Bowler, and even James Thierry, Teddy Victor included, was not to bring in the Cubans and institute a hardcore Marxist-Leninist ideology on our people. The ideologue, the person behind that dogma, was Bernard Cord. But of course, Maurice Bishop himself too was a communist. He named his son Vladimir, a Russian name. Russia is a communist country. He didn't name his son, give his son a name from Africa or even England or France. So I want to mention Brenda Phillip, may your soul rest in peace. Ethelbert John from River Sally, may your soul rest in peace. Ralph Thompson from River Road, may your soul rest in peace. Antonio Langdon, may your soul rest in peace. Of course, former Prime Minister Tillman Thomas is still around. His two brothers, they were arrested too. And his father, the PRA went to the house and pulled a gun in front of his face to blow his brain off in his own house. the father of Tillman Thomas. Dr. Japal, may your soul rest in peace. I don't want to mention what they did to Kenny Lalsey, Winston White, Ras I Free. I'm not going to go there. Winston Simon, Broco, may your soul rest in peace. Mikey James, who they shot after they beat him so badly in his feet and leave him to bleed. May your soul rest in peace. And I could go on and on. Rasta Jerry, who refused to eat pig meat, pork, that they tried to force feed the Rasta and hold them and cut the hair with a cutlass. He decided to stand firm. May your soul rest in peace. When they didn't eat the pork, they would hold them down and ram pig meat in the mouth, breaking teeth. Hopeville concentration camp. That didn't happen under Gary watch. Gary didn't build one prison. That happened during the Glorious Revolution. Propaganda works for those who don't want to think or reason for themselves. Don't call yourself a Christian. You don't have a heart. Maybe there is no hope for you. You cannot celebrate the revolution. That is not what the NJM fighters wanted. It was kidnapped and turned into the PRG, which did not exist, by people who did not fight. Maurice Bishop was in hiding. It is said he wasn't even on Grenadian territory. He might have taken a boat out of Grenadian waters. And after Kennedy, Budlal, and all of that, guys secured the revolution, took care of the Mongoose gang. They gave him power and make him prime minister. He turned around and jailed every one of them. See you next time. My name is Dennis Charles. The rest will be in my book. I have all the information I need, and my book will be published pretty soon after editing. Thank you very much.